right, and here we are once again with the Best Book Club. I am your host, Salam, aka Nufatora, and with me today I have the one-of-a-kind, absolutely fantastic artist, one of the best in the community, the Killer WC.
Hi, happy to be in this chat. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor to have one of the people that I've been following for so long, and one of the first content creators that I decided like this is someone I love their content and their art style and all that kind of thing. So it's mind blowing to me to actually have you on this. I didn't think only 6 episodes in I'd be having such a big name.
No, I'm happy to come. I'm really excited.
Awesome. So this episode, we're going to be talking about a story by AntiCherry, one of the most prolific writers in the community. And the story is called Alternative Punishment. So I'm curious about when you first read the story.
Oh, well, if I had to say, I think I read it as it was being published, because
Okay.
if I recall right, I was very excited for the updates. Like it was for like a month or something, because it's kind of a short story, but it's very nice. So during that month, I was checking constantly to see if they had updated the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely very familiar with that. And this was a Lucky Fetish exclusive story, as far as I know. I didn't see it on DeviantArt anywhere. So where did you find it on Lucky Fetish?
Yes, and Lucky Fetish. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So when did you join that forum up?
Huh. No, that's another good question. I'm not sure. Actually,
Okay.
maybe I can check it up.
Yeah, I mean, if you logged in and checked your profile, it would tell you, like the profile summary. It would tell you when you. I think it tells you when you first made your account.
See.
Yes, date registered.
I made the account on 2011.
Wow, that's 3 years before me. That's crazy. So the story was released in 2013, May, and I've talked about it to some extent on previous podcasts, but that's sort of where I see the renaissance in the wedgie community happening. Is like that's really when I think it started to go full out. Like this is when it was really happening and started to pick up momentum.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's because you start getting all these higher quality stories like Alternative Punishment, Luckily Unlucky, Sore Winner, all of those are AntiCherry.
Oh, that's a classic. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it only has a little over 22,000 views, and that's honestly, I think it's a real shame, because this is like you said, it is kind of a shoddy story, but it's so memorable because of the time it was posted.
Yeah, I mean, I really I like the characters. I mean, and it goes straight to the point, and everything is like it all takes place in like a very long night, and that I really enjoy, because sometimes with other stories, I tend to get lost because a lot of stuff is happening, but in this one is very constant. The story is like in this time slot, like it's
Mm-hmm.
one day.
Yeah, it's very easy to follow. Not just the fact that it's one consistent night, but also the fact that there's only a small amount of characters, and each one is pretty memorable from the rest. They all have very distinct personalities and characteristics.
Indeed.
It's definitely something to for a lot of writers to at least look at and perhaps draw something from when they're looking to create characters. So what I have, this always happens to me. I have half-formed thoughts and I can't fully put them together.
Don't worry.
Make an actual question or sentence. Who's your favorite character in the story?
Oh, if I had to pick, I think Diane. Yeah, I think Diane, because, well, first off, because it's like I like to imagine the costume. She was, if I'm not wrong, I think she was a baseball player, and it was very fun seeing like her whole situation. Like she's pursuing her daughter into the house. She loses her. She ends up getting wedged by her own daughter. It's a very fantastic situation when you think about it. Like all of that adds up to the humiliation of the moment, and then you have her being like this now in high school who is constantly getting picked on. So it's like, oh, the situation is like back then, but now it's worse because I'm not only getting wedged again, but it's my daughter who is doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think honestly one of the best lines in the story comes right at the end from Diane. Come on, sis, let me down. My granny panties are destroying my butt. And I think not only the fact that that's oh, I love it. That's just like, it hits me because that's something that's just a wedgie fetish with love. But
then going back to when she was in high school, yeah.
Exactly, and it's also drawn. There's sort of a runner. Are you familiar with that term?
A runner. No, what is it?
So basically, a runner, when you're talking about a TV show, a movie, a story, or something like that, it's like a kind of like a smaller storyline or something along those lines that sort of keeps coming up throughout the piece or whatever it is. And the one that I saw there in this story was Diane constantly saying, no, they're not granny panties. I don't wear granny panties. She refuses to.
She mentioned it
and then she slowly comes to accept, okay, yeah, I am a nerd. I wear granny panties.
She admits it, yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Probably one of my favorite things in this story is just that slow burn acceptance of this is what it is, you know. Piper, I would say Piper was my favorite character. I'm not usually a fan of like the ditzy, airheaded, just doing exactly what she told, or like the perfect crony kind of character. But I think AntiCherry did it really well with her. Like, just he utilized her extremely well. Especially come into like when the
with the dog.
I'm thinking of like I'm trying to find their names. Piper, Alexis, and Emma.
Alexis and Emma, yes.
When Phoebe and Diane first encounter, like they first come up to the three in their costumes, and like, hey, you guys wearing panties? Are you guys wearing underwear? And Piper is like, yeah, and the other ones are like, oh, why do you care? And then Piper just pulls up on their underwear. That was fantastic. That was so good. So something that I've been wondering about is why exactly this story has stuck with you all these years?
I think part of it is that, well, the protagonists, or well, mostly Diane and Phoebe, are kind of like this mom and auntie. So it's kind of usually don't get those roles in these stories, you know. It's usually like they are in college or they are starting to get into the work line. But no, these two ladies are actually already with the families and stuff, you know. So it kind of makes them
Yeah.
distinguishable for me.
Okay. Yeah, it's something about like the having a hot mom in a story is it really it appeals to me so much, especially if they get a wedgie. It's the story that first comes to mind when I'm thinking of hot moms getting wedgies is Jake and Gwen on DeviantArt. Are you familiar with that story?
I'm kind of sound familiar. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's the story about the mom, like the son of the mom, kind of fantasizing about his mom's ass and always wanting to give her a wedgie, and then one thing leads to another, and they end up it actually happens, and the daughter blackmails them into making wedgie videos to make profit for her, and kind of explores the relationship of between Jake and Gwen and how wedgies play into that. And along the way, Gwen, the mother, discovers how much of a freak she is for wedgies. I would highly recommend giving it a read. It's who's it by? It's a long running story, and unfortunately, the author has not posted an update in a while. Which he's starting to branch out quite a bit. Wedgie Lover 109, kind of a generic name, but there are some parts in this story are just absolutely some of the best that I have read in a very long time. And it's not because it's really written outstandingly, because it is written decently well, but it's sort of the slow burn to those parts. Like the one that will always stick in my head is this. It's a scene where Jake, the son, finally gives his mom an atomic wedgie, and this is like 20 parts is what he calls them, 20 parts into the story. So there's anticipation, and you're kind of on the edge. You see, like, when is it going to happen? Is it going to happen ever? And it pays off so well. Like the author really captured the humiliation aspect and sort of exposing the Gwen to what exactly, like how submissive she can be.
Yeah, I have not read that one though. I thought you meant a different story that I think, well, but okay, I guess I could check it out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'll just send you a link to the DeviantArt account because it has all the posts on there. So yeah, getting back to alternative punishment. Do you remember what exactly grabbed you about the story, like to first decide you were going to read it?
Well, first off, Halloween. There is always something about Halloween because it's fun seeing characters like people are something else when they're in costume. So seeing the characters being specifically in different embarrassing costumes, with associated the wedges, with losing part of the costumes also makes it kind of distinguishable too for me. I mean, it makes it a little bit more different. I don't know if I explain myself. I mean, I guess that is part of why I always remember the story because other stories I usually in, as I said before, in college or they're in some kind of campus or in school. Basically, everything is around those three areas. So anything that means a different setting is makes the story more memorable to me. Like for example, I can remember. I can remember, for example, stories about the Wedgisaurus. I think I said I did a story about the Wedgisaurus in something like a kind of a Jurassic Park facility. I might be wrong in that one, but I remember that. Stuff that makes the story distinguish itself from others is kind of what makes it more entertaining for me. I don't know if that is making much sense.
Yeah, I'm following you. Yeah, it's what other stories would you say kind of stand out from the rest that you have alternative punishment? What other ones would you say?
A few of the stories in Lucky Fetish, for example, the ones in the short history department, are there plenty that I really enjoy. But for example, if I had to think of one that is something that I remember, I remember.
That's fine if you can't quite remember one off the top of your head at the moment.
No, it's hard at the moment. Sorry.
Yeah,
because...
I mean, if you think of one later down the road, just feel free to shout it out.
Sure.
And you did bring up a very interesting point about like how so many of the stories are about like the setting is revolving around a school theme, whether that be high school, college, what have you. And I think that is as sort of an interesting and obvious, in a way, reflection of what's the word? I guess the inception of the fetish for a lot of people and where people's interests really lie. Because I think for a lot of people, it's been like they kind of maybe they started having some kind of feeling about wedgies before high school or anything, but once they reached that milestone in their life, that's when they started to look into it and like they found, oh, hey, maybe they found Lucky Fetish or DeviantArt and they found the wedgie community. Oh, I'm not alone in this. And like there's actually so much going on with this.
Oh, sorry, I just remembered.
Oh, go ahead.
Karate Friends by Ceseta, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That is another one that is one of my favorites, especially because the part of karate I use it to fight, so it kind of hit for me that, especially to read it.
Yeah.
There was also a bit with pizza, and that one that really made me beyond the story.
Yeah, it is funny that you say that Karate Friends is one of your favorites because it also is one of my favorites as well. And it's a little bit of a plug here. I did do an episode on that story, so anybody who hasn't heard that one yet, you should check that one out. Me and Hans Gutherson did a really good episode with that.
It's very good. Saceta is a fantastic writer.
Oh, absolutely. He is one of the best in the community. Although I do think he's kind of found a formula that he follows. I think it's been a while since he's done something on the level of a Karate Friends or what are they? The Game of Thrones requests. I thought those were absolutely fantastic. If you read those.
Oh, I think I did a picture for the Game of Thrones once. I'm pretty
Yeah, I
sure.
think the first one was Daenerys, however you say her last name, in her palace or what. I've never seen Game of Thrones. I'm not a fan, so this is all just like I can't quite picture. I think she's like in her palace or something. Her attendant shows her a way to relax and release stress, and it turns out it's wedgies. Surprise, surprise. Um, just kind of, I guess, like as a sidebar, sort of. And I think this is why I like having this as a conversation, because it can go however, it can go to whatever realm we feel like talking about. I think Saseda kind of flatlined when he started doing commissions full time, because at that point you're sort of at the whim of the commissioner. And obviously, you can have rules about what you will accept, what you won't accept, and you can discuss specifics with people. But when that's I think that sort of is a downfall of when you're a content creator and you're making your living off of your art and your content. You're pretty much at the whim to a certain degree of the people that are paying you, and I think that's a little unfortunate.
In a certain way, I mean, I can relate to that. Sometimes I want to do
Yeah,
a picture, sometimes I want to do another, but most of the time I have to do what I'm paid for.
everything and everything that you've done, that like all the commissions have been, you've blown it out of the park. It's you, one of the things that I just love about your style is that it is so unique from anybody else's. Is like I don't even need to see your username on anything or your name on anywhere on. I don't need a watermark or anything. As soon as I see something that you've done, I know it was you, because your style is so unique, and as you said, your style stands out from the rest, and that's a big reason why I've been following you. Um, wow, I lost my train. I lost where we were at before. Is there any? Oh, Halloween. That's right. What about Halloween? Why do you enjoy Halloween in stories?
Oh well, if I had to say, it's because, well, mostly because for the team, first off, I love Halloween. It has always been fun to me, even though, well, from where I come from, it's not exactly a big thing, but Carnival, we had Carnival, and it's very fun to dress up in Carnival as something else. So Halloween has that subject going for me. It's like the second day in the year where I can do that. As for put it down into a story, it's always fun to me because you got people trying different stuff. In this case, you had the mom and the auntie in sort of embarrassing costumes, which adds up to the story. It's different to be wearing in such situation that to be wearing while you are in just your regular clothing, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's um, yeah. It's. I mean, Halloween has never been that big to me, but I think for the purposes of the story, it really adds a layer to the plot. Like in a couple of some of the costumes kind of drive the story along. Like where, oh, I can't remember if it was Phoebe or Diane that had their top pulled down so their arms were trapped.
I think it was Phoebe.
It
Yes,
was
Phoebe.
yes, yeah, it was Phoebe. That's so that plays a part there, and ooh, I guess it's not strictly a part of the costume itself, but when was it also Phoebe that got her underwear shoved in her mouth and she had it kind of as a gag?
Mm, yeah, I think so because Diane escapes and then she releases Phoebe. I think. Yeah, I think because Phoebe
Yeah.
had her underwear ripped off. I think if I'm not wrong, and then she was hung up by her shorts.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, so I think AntiCherry really does make
I actually
good
have a
use
hand
of.
about the statue, which adds up to
Yeah,
the story because she used it to do it to her sister.
right. Yeah, I think AntiCherry does make good use of having Halloween as the setting. I think he could have gone a little further into it, but I don't know, it's I think with what he provided us, he did a really good job with that. Is there any particular part of the story that stands out to you more than the rest?
I think the part with the seesaw. I really like the idea of using the seesaw as a wedgie machine. Like it's like it resembles the scene in Kids Next Door. The part where number 4 wedges that guy with a seesaw.
Yeah, I thought that was really creative. And that's not really something that I've seen before. It's it's definitely a creative idea. And there's I mean, looking at I don't really read too many stories anymore. Like when I first joined the Lucky Fetish board, I went through the entire fictional storyboard section, and I read everything because like that was I just discovered.
Yeah, and
The
starting it wasn't very big.
right. Yeah, it was not very big back then.
There were some stories, if I know wrong, that were imported from the Wedgie Girls blog, I think.
I'm not sure about that. But
Yeah, I
say.
could have done. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I'm just trying. I keep losing my train of thought. So yeah, I mean the okay. So where I was going with that, with the whole like reading all the stories, writers do seem to stick to like how they sort of stick to the same school setting, and I'm guilty of that myself with my story. But
I find it fine. I mean,
yeah, I do as well.
It's the usual area for wedges, but it's just that because some stories I kind of lose them because I'm not sure if they're part of, because I remember the scene, but I don't remember exactly neither the name of the story or exactly where it was from. Because, well, as I said, there is like so many stories that take place in the same type of scenario that, well, I lose it. I don't know what it is. Know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, yeah. Using the school, using
there is this story that took me very long to find again. It is in short stories in Lucky Fetish, but it's about this girl who plays, I think it's rugby, and she pisses off another a girl from the opposite team, and it's meeting her again after the game, and the other girl wedges her across the field, and that story took me so long to find again because I had no idea what I had read it or the name of the story. I thought it was
on
a
the
lot of
board.
another story, but no, it wasn't.
It sounds familiar to me. I can't think of what it's called either, but
it's in short
I
stories.
think I'm thinking of a story where they're in the locker room after the game, and the person, the girl, has to be like a bragger and has to talk a huge game. She has to.
Yeah,
like,
that's kind of what happens.
Yeah.
She handles more than she can chew.
So with a lot of writers do tend to recycle the school setting. Where was I going to go with that? Oh, well, if I remember, I will come back to it. It's the just even looking at the structure of the story and how AntiCherry put it in two parts. It's kind of like, it seems kind of like a two-part play in my mind.
True.
In
It's fine.
In the beginning, you have Phoebe and Diane on the defensive, and they're the ones getting the wedgies, and they're being pushed around by these high schoolers. And then in part two, it completely flips around, and Phoebe and Diane are able to completely get back at them.
For the most part, because I think Emma escapes. She gets back. She gets wedged in the school the next day, I think.
Yeah, for a week by bullies. And then Piper and Alexis are forced to join in it, and so they learn their lesson there. And I remember when I was reading it, I thought that they would get Emma like they had gotten Piper and Alexis just in that night and just easily get her. And then he brought it into like they all come home and they find Emma in her room asleep, and they have the chance to give her the wedgie there. And I thought, oh man, are they really going to do this? The mom is going to give her own daughter a wedgie in their own house. But then he rationalized it with, oh, it would look like, instead of just some playful bullying, it would look like so she broke into the house because she didn't look like the mom.
Exactly.
So
It
I
would
thought
be
that
like a
was
stranger breaking in.
exactly. So the way that they had Phoebe and Diane get back at Emma and sort of show her the error of her ways is, I thought, was super creative. Like I hadn't seen that anywhere else before either. Having Phoebe convince the one nerd to go and get her bully.
And pay big apples to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was fantastically done. And I think, I mean, there's some not as well written parts, like the fact that the nerd just kind of obeys this complete random stranger. But it's I think you can overlook that just by the fact of how well it pays off.
Indeed. I actually he gives to a happy ending. I mean, with the girl getting new friends and everything.
Yeah. And that actually reminds me of a line that kind of stuck in my head. Where is it? It's something that I kind of, oh, there it is. It's something that kind of always remember when I think about alternative punishment. So it goes like, the nerdy girl was left alone with Emma. She held out a hand and helped up the fallen girl. Thanks, I didn't think I could take any more underwear up my butt without crying. It's okay. After a while, your butt kind of warps around the leg holes and you get used to it. That's, I don't know why, I've just always remembered that line whenever I think about the story. As far as I can remember, it kind of was the first instance of any kind of explanation as to why nerds and stories sort of get used to getting the wedgies, and like they kind of just fall into place whenever the bully comes around. Like kind of, I guess, like the first explicitly stated reason why.
I understand, yeah. I think it's a nice comment on when that happens. I mean, I'm not sure how to say exactly, but I like to imagine the way like a bot evolving into a more valuable bot. It's a funny concept.
Yeah, it is, definitely. Um, I think the way that AntiCherry sort of juggled the different viewpoints between Diane and Phoebe, I thought was handled pretty well. It
good.
is.
Sorry, you say.
You're good. You're good. He did a good job with like breaking it up, so like it was pretty obvious who when it was when the view changed. And something you mentioned earlier about the dog and like the fence post. I think that was also one of the first. That might have been the first time I ever saw an animal get involved in a wedgie.
Right. Now that I think about it, I don't have much more on that regard. I mean, for other histories, I really cannot remember much on that for other histories with animals.
Mm-hmm. I mean, your work consists of a lot of using a lot of anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, but I mean, like, animals, no.
Right.
Stories.
Yeah. And it's not something that I normally. It's not something that I'd ever usually like really seek out to read about or see, but it was. I just even like looking at the amount of like the variety of the kinds of wedgies given in this story is it is a kind of a longer short story, but it's not that long. So looking at the variety of wedgies that AntiCherry put in alternative punishment,
Yeah.
I think it's a little impressive with
Pretty
how
much
he was able to
everybody
pull off
is
so many.
sort of different wedgies. Well,
Yeah.
in other histories, it's kind of like just pull, atomic.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess I don't hate it because it's like atomic wedgies are my favorite.
True,
But
same here.
I see the atomic wedgie as sort of like the pinnacle, and like that's the level. Like it's I feel like it should be built up to. You shouldn't start out a story with it or overuse it in any way. I think it should be well deserved. Like you sort of in a sense worked for that to read it. Like you had to go through the story to understand. You had to read the whole story to understand why there is an atomic wedgie now. And I think that, and it may not always happen. And so I think the fact that I'm not complaining that AntiCherry didn't have an atomic wedgie in this. I think it was a good choice because it seemed like, and this is actually a decent segue into the
there
one
is
segment
one.
I have on the show. Oh, is there? Am I remembering correctly?
Well, one of the girls, the one that get wedgie in the seesaw. She feels this wedgie by the seesaw, then it cuts her underwear, and Phoebe, I think, pulls it over her head, and they hang her by her denim pants.
Yeah, you're right about that. Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, so completely ignore my previous statement, but I think it is. But I think it does hold up. Like it is deserved and it's earned because you have for a good portion of the story, the Phoebe and Diane are getting wedgies, and these kids seem like they're getting away with murder and like they're untouchable. Cause that would be kind of a dream come true in my opinion, is to just have random women come up to you and be like, "Hey, we're gonna give you wedgies," and then you flip it on them and like you're giving them the wedgies. So and then they when they finally escape and they're able to get them back, it is. I think it is the payoff is deserved there.
Yeah, it's a really nice payoff at the end.
Yeah. And so, that kind of killed my segue, but just looking at the realism of it, this kind of brings me to the one segment I like to have on this show, and it's which Earth would this story be in? And so basically, I've had this idea for a long time about what kind of um, reality stories are set in, and because some stories are extremely realistic to planet Earth, versus a lot of stories are in their own universes or on completely separate planets, and so they follow their own rules. But each story, each piece of art, what have you, they all kind of follow their own rules laid out by the author, whether it's written directly, like this is what it is, or it's something you find out along the way through characters doing things, or and so when I talk about reality, I mean, is it realistic to the universe of the story? So basically, I have 4 different kinds of Earths, as I call them. And so the first one is called alternate Earth, where Earth is changed to some degree, with wedgies being a center focus. The second one is idealistic Earth, where Earth is changed to fit the desires of the wedgie community or some aspect of it, depending on the writer. The third is fantastical Earth, where Earth is changed to be unrecognizable. And the fourth is realistic Earth, where Earth is normal as we experience it and live it every day. So which one do you think it would fall under, or do you think it would be something completely different?
I think it will fall under the first one because, well, I mean, it's not the fourth one because although it's real, the environment is kind of realistic. The wedges are a very big focus on this story, while in reality, wedges are not that common. So it will be more like a world where wedges are more of a focus, like you said on the first one. I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Basically, every single one of the wedgies is
it's technically
could
possible, but it's
right.
on this plane of reality where a lot of people are very focused onto it. And well, here in the real world, it's not like that. Not everybody is into like wedges 100% every hour, every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even like the dog part with the dog playing tug of war with the underwear, I think that even is realistic. I think the only one that might be a little iffy would be the seesaw wedgie. Although it's Phoebe and Diane getting Alexis, and it's said that Alexis is wearing granny panties, but in real life, granny panties aren't usually that stretchy. It's more so like briefs or that kind of thing. So that could be a little iffy, but I think for the most part it is just the wedgies, at least for this one, because it's not like the whole town or like the life of all of them revolves around wedgies.
True.
It's just sort of this one night, this is what happens to them, and it happens because the daughter is giving wedgies. That's just being a bully.
That's
And like in the beginning, AntiCherry sort of sets it up as like she is like Emma is sort of just a delinquent and a bully. Like she skips class, she's talking back to teachers, she's bullying other students, and the specific detention that she got this time was because of a wedgie. So she's gotten many other detentions before, so it's not like wedgies are the only thing that's happening.
Indeed.
I think. Yeah, that's really the only sort of official segment I have on this podcast. I think it's something interesting. Let's see here. Which costume do you think was the best in the story?
Oh, I think that, yeah. I like the idea of, I think I like the idea of, I mean, I saw the picture here, like, at times, like a chart I had drawn before, someone with big thighs and a small waist, you know, and in that sort of costume, it will look very appealing. So I think I sort of wanted to draw it at some time, but at some point, but you know, I was just busy with other projects, so I never did.
Well, that could be some good marketing as you draw Diane for as sort of cover art for this podcast. I've always been kind of what's the word? Starts with a P. Partial. That's the word. I've always been kind of partial to Phoebe as AntiCherry puts it, the sexy native girl. And I've always kind of just thought Phoebe was just really hot from the get-go. And it really, like, out of all of the characters, when Phoebe's dressed as the native girl, it's sort of like I can picture her almost exactly like the black hair, dreads going down the front, the two feathers in the headband. I guess it's a single feather in the back, but I always picture two feathers on the sides. And like the tube top and a tube top. He described it like a tight brown tube top cut off very high on her thighs. And I've always been under the impression that a tube top is just top, not the action, not like the shorts or the pants or what have you.
Oh, I think I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
In my case, because I imagine Diana sort of like those, like the classic uniform for sexy baseball player, like white shorts, white top, red hat.
Yeah, I mean it's not something I ever really. I just looked up sexy baseball player, and that's all men.
Huh.
Okay, let me refine my search here, because it's not something I've actually been able to really picture that well. Okay, yeah, I see. All these years later, I finally can picture it. Now, when you picture Diane in the costume, do you picture shorts or a skirt?
I usually picture shorts.
Okay.
Was it a skirt?
I don't know what exactly. I don't remember exactly how he. Oh yeah, it's booty shorts.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I really think about it. The Phoebe is one of the only characters that I was ever able to really just even picture in general in my head, and like in wedgie stories in general. I think that just is a point in favor of this story is like how high quality it is.
Indeed, it's a very good story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the consensus here. It is a really good story, and I highly recommend anybody to read it. It is sort of a look back into the past. as I've said on other podcasts, it's I guess if it was published now, I think it would still get a good amount of attention, but I'm not sure. What do you think about this? If this story was published now and it did not exist in 2013, what kind of reception do you think it would get? Do you think it would still stick in your head as much, or like what do you think would happen if it was published?
Yeah, it would probably stick in my head. I'm sure people would ask for a sequel. A lot of people would ask for it.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe I am just biased. I really like this story.
Yeah, I mean, but so when you first found the story, so like, I should have asked this earlier, but where were you at in life when this story came out?
2013. I'm not very sure. I'm really not sure what was happening at the time.
Were you putting out content at that point, or was that before?
Was I? I don't think so. I mean, I think I started. When did I start? I know it was 8 years ago, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking it up now. Oh, and 1.5 million page views. Oh, congratulations! That's incredible. It says 10 years. There's got to be a part like it says when you joined.
Oh, when I joined.
I guess
when
2011.
I know. Yeah, I know it unit. I don't 11 years ago, but I wasn't exactly putting content until 8 years.
That's true. Yeah.
Because I was working on other stuff.
Yeah. Come on, load. Oh, you got 582 of them. It's gonna take a while to scroll through all this, but I think I actually got through it pretty fast. Wow, this is quite a look down memory lane and just look. Wow.
I think it's pretty likely I was struggling with college at the time.
Okay. Wow. Just seeing how your style has matured, and it's still, even back then, your art style was so unique. Even back then, just looking at the time period and what was being released then, like other artists, nobody was as realistic. Oh wow! So
still learning. And
I mean, looking at anybody else's art at the time, yours far and away was like it in my opinion, it most closely resembled real life.
I think Stevie was way better than me. I think he was one of those that I look it up to. He and Changemon. I love Changemon content.
Who was the first one?
Stevie. How do you say? Because I say Stevie, but I never had to say it out loud. Stevie or like the cereal?
I don't think I've ever actually seen anything by that guy.
Really?
I'm not sure.
I'm probably saying it wrong because I'm sure he's very popular.
I don't know. Your first illustration, I don't know Spanish, so I don't know what the title is, but it was published 5 days after the release of Alternative Punishment.
Huh.
How about that?
That's nice. Then I know what I was. I was leaving college.
Okay, so.
Or at least I think I was leaving college.
Yeah, so like, where were you in like the fetish? Were you what kind of? Okay, I'll just ask the question. Where were you in the fetish at that point? Do you remember?
I was starting. Originally, I did a couple of fanfics with wedges in them. I mean, but they're only Spanish. So if you're listening to this podcast, don't even bother looking it up. It's not. I mean, it's in Spanish. So I did a couple of fanfics from there. From those fanfics, I got the idea to do those pictures of tigers and the other characters because of what happened in the fanfic. And from that, things blew up. I mean, I didn't expect to get such a reception.
Yeah, but it is well deserved. And I'm curious, why Tigress?
Because of the fanfics. You see, I was very into Kung Fu Panda at the time. So when I started, I promised, you see, I ordered this tablet for drawing. And I promised one of my followers that in fabric that one of the first things I was going to draw was tigers eating a wedgie. So I got the tablet, I practiced a bit with it, and I decided I'm going to do that. And well, you see the picture, it's kind of awful, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it's terrible because I loved, even back then, I loved your style back then, and there was no way that I could have foreseen how much your style would have improved and matured. But even I shouldn't have closed it. But, some of my favorite pictures to this day are some of your old stuff. Let's see here. Where are all the way back down again? It's in featured. It is unfortunate that you kind of were targeted for posting content.
Oh, right, the Ruby stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything, it helps. I mean Newgrounds, Pixie.
Yeah.
Put me a lot of followers.
Yeah, and your Patreon too is it's one of the only Patrons I follow. Because it's so much high quality content.
Hey, thank you.
Oh yeah, the wasp wedgie picture is iconic. That's
right, that mini comic.
Yeah.
I like
Where's the first one? Where's the first one I found though? That made me start following you. Oh, where is it? I think the first one I might have seen was the Rogue Wedgie, or the Raven and Starfire Kisses and Wedgies. Ooh, that was I think that was the one that actually made me start following you. Was that one?
I think that was my first picture that kind of blew up because I had a lot of followers after that one. And it's one of the ones that I have that has more views on it.
Yeah. I mean, you got the fan service there, and one thing that you've always that's been like one of the best things you've ever done is like you're just one of the greatest at drawing asses. And even back then, it's on full show right there. So nobody has anything to complain about in that department. Okay, so going back to alternative punishment, is there anything that we did not hit on that you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I mean, regarding this story, no.
Yeah. I mean, that's everything that I wanted to talk about. It's all around just a good story, a good look back in history at where the community was, and I guess it's sort of
classic.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a classic, and it's one that a lot of people either won't know about or won't have the chance to experience it because I don't know like what goes on with the Lucky Fetish boards. A lot of the time it'll be closed to new members, and I don't follow when it's open to new and when it's closed. And it's also just kind of dead a lot of the time, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, from time to time, but from time to time you get new stories that are very good.
Yeah, that is very true. Like the one story Excommunicado by Wedgie 74 that I did my first episode on. He definitely had a lot of potential when he first started, and he started to realize that potential as he went on. But if you want to hear the full conversation about that, just listen to that first episode. So yeah, I think the board's not going to go away anytime soon. I hope it doesn't, because it's always been my sort of hub for content. That's sort of like the end all be all that I've always seen. And I still post the stories that I do whenever, the very rare times that I actually post things now, because I've been so freaking busy. But I try to, me and Hans Gutherson, I think we try to keep the board alive. And if you ever, okay, so here's a question: do you think you'd ever write a story and post it?
Well, I mean, again, because the one I did about in fanfic, but yeah, I haven't really gotten into it. I could swear I once did a story for a picture, but I have done so many pictures that I kind of forgot where I put it. So
yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
not surprising. It's not hard to forget about one thing when you have so many other high quality and well remembered pictures to
but
fall
there is
back
something
on.
I do have plans for. I mean, sort of. And currently not, because I'm working on a large animation, but I have plans for a for a sort of like a comic series. I want to make like this big crossover sort of story, but just like a day-to-day story, but with different characters from different franchise.
Okay.
It's sort of in my mind right now, so there is nothing written right now, so I have to work on it. But it's one of the ideas that I want to bring to life.
Okay.
Probably never gonna print it or something because copyright. But
well, I mean, the Wedgie community has kind of taken over some characters for their mascot Wedgie girls, like
Tigers.
Specifically Kanata and Tigers and Raven and those kinds of characters. So I think you'll be all right. And that's definitely a good way to tease fans, to keep an eye out for that and kind of bring it up from time to time. Remember, oh yeah, they actually want to see this. I'll go through with it. So don't completely discount it from ever happening, because who knows, you might get around to it sometime.
Oh yeah, I have plans for it. Probably in a couple of months when the animation is more progress on, so I can give it some time. Mm-hmm. But I have plans for it.
Good. Well, yeah, I don't think I've ever been worried about no content from you. You just continuously pump stuff out, and it's in such a high level of quality. It's something that I consider you one of the pinnacles of the community for content.
Thank you. In my case, well, I just don't know when I'm gonna be gone, so I think I just have to keep doing stuff to make sure I did something. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
How I like to think about it.
Mm-hmm. I think with having the Patreon, you can sort of support yourself to some extent by doing this, even if it's not something that you kind of see yourself doing long term. And at least it's not like you're spending all this time and effort and getting nothing in return. So, and hopefully it shows you like people are very invested in what you have to put out, and they're willing to pay for it. So I think that should be like a little bit of a confidence boost. Like people are actually that interested. So I remember, just I guess real quick before we close this out, I remember a while back you were talking, you kind of mentioned in a post on DA about wanting to get into drawing like actual comic books and being an artist for a big comic company.
Yeah. And I kind of drop it out because that was when I was starting, and I sort of had this fantastical idea that I will maybe one day work for Marvel or for DC or for Dark Horse. But I really don't want that anymore because I know if I do it, or if, first of all, it's very hard to get into it. Second, it will be like I will be doing someone else's work, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be writing my characters. I'm not going to be drawing my characters. I will be drawing someone else's.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe you could end up starting your own comic book company, and it surpasses Marvel, DC, or Dark Horse.
I doubt I can do that, but for now, if I'm with my own comic, Unit Wolf.
Exactly. Yeah.
I enjoy that. I'm totally working on the next page for tomorrow.
Yeah. And at least you've continued to bless us with those posts on DA because they're not sexual, so you can't get flagged for them. But that. Yeah, I mean, do you? So,
I still think I try to here and there, but because I enjoy drawing that kind of stuff. I mean, I look up to Fred Perry for it, so I try to do something like he does.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, anything we didn't hit that you want to talk about alternative punishment?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I think
It was very enjoyable. Thank you.
Are you talking about the story or the podcast?
The podcast. It was very enjoyable.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in awe that I was able to talk to someone of your caliber. I'm so appreciative that you actually were interested in coming on. It's something I'm gonna cherish. This past hour and 8 minutes.
No, I enjoy it a lot because, well, I guess I never had big expectation for me, and to actually get an interview for something, this is the second time. It feels so real for me.
Yeah, I'm glad I was able to get you on before the interview started coming left and right, because then I don't think I would even be a blip on your radar.
Hey, it's fine.
So,
there is not that many people doing this, and it's very nice for you to do it.
Yeah, I'm while I'm busy with my house, I don't really have the brain power to write content, so I try to give content however I can, however meager it is. So
you'll be fine.
I'm sure I will be, but I don't know. We'll see how this goes. All right, well, that was fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And hopefully we talk again soon.
Sure.
Yeah, so this has been another episode of the Best Book Club. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. Give it any feedback that you think it deserves. Tell me how I did. Tell me how I can improve. And I will see you on the next episode.